Returning to H.R. 618, the question is on adopting the bill as amended and ordered it favorably reported to the House. A recorded vote has been requested. The electronic voting is now open. That's what I just, oh. Yeah, I was checking. I'm sorry, Mr. Gallegos, it was just.
Mr. Sablon.
Sablon votes aye.
Mr. Sablon votes aye. Mr. San Nicolas.
Madam Clerk, how is the chair recorded?
The chair is recorded as a yes.
Mr. Nicholas votes yes.
Mr. San Nicolas votes yes. Ms. Talib.
Talib votes yes.
Ms. Talib votes yes. Mr. Tonko.
Tonko votes yes.
Mr. Tonko votes yes. Ms. Trahan. Ms. Velasquez.
Mr. Chair, how is Mr. Neguse recorded?
Mr. Neguse is not recorded.
Neguse votes yes.
Mr. Neguse votes yes.
Boebert votes no.
Mrs. Boebert votes no.
How is Cohen recorded?
Mr. Cohen is not recorded.
I vote yes.
Mr. Cohen votes yes.
Dingle's a yes.
Mrs. Dingle votes yes.
Trahan votes yes.
Mr. Hand votes yes.
McKean votes yes.
Mr. McEachin votes yes.
Heiss votes no.
Mr. Heiss votes no. Mr. Gomert.
No.
Mr. Gomert votes no. Ms. Gonzalez-Colon.
Gonzalez-Colon votes no.
Ms. Gonzalez-Colon votes no. Mr. Graves. Ms. Harrell. Mr. McClintock.
No.
Mr. McClintock votes no. Mrs. Radewagen. Mr. Rosendale.
Rosendale, nay.
Mr. Rosendale votes no. Mr. Webster.
Webster votes nay.
Mr. Webster votes no.
Are there any members who wish to vote and not recorded or change their vote?
Madam Clerk, how is Garcia recorded?
Mr. Garcia is not recorded.
Garcia votes aye.
Mr. Garcia votes aye.
Graves, how am I recorded?
Graves is not recorded.
Graves, no.
Mr. Graves votes no.
How is Brownlee recorded?
Ms. Brownlee is not recorded.
Brownlee, we're on final passage.
Yes.
Brownlee votes aye.
Ms. Brownlee votes aye.
Anyone else? Any member? The vote is now closed. Clerk will please tally and report.
Mr. Chair, on this vote, the yeas are 24 and the nays are 18.
The ayes have it. The bill is adopted as amended. Ordered to favorable.
I said Lowenthal, aye. I don't know what.
Reported to the House. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. And without objection, the long title of H.R. 6181 is amended. Now, moving on to H.R. 5444, Indian Boarding School Commission. The question is on the unfinished business, the amendments to the ANS, the amendment designated Obernaut number 3. The members will vote electronically. And Madam Clerk, how is the chair and ranking member recorded?
Mr. Chair, on this vote, on this vote, the chair is recorded as a no, and the ranking member votes recorded as a yes.
The clerk will now read the names of any members that are not recorded.
Ms. Brownlee.
Brownlee, no.
Ms. Brownlee votes no. Mr. Cohen.
Oh.
Mr. Cohen votes no. Mrs. Dingle.
Dingles, no.
Mrs. Dingle votes no. Mr. Garcia. Mr. Lowenthal. Mr. McEachin. I'm sorry, Mr. McEachin, can you repeat that, please? Mr. Neguse. Mr. Neguse?
Mr. Neguse votes no.
Thank you. Mr. Neguse votes no.
Next.
Mr. Sablon?
Saban votes no.
Mr. Sablon votes no. Mr. McEachin is not recorded.
McEachin votes no.
Thank you. Mr. McEachin votes no. Mr. San Nicolas?
St. Nicholas votes no.
Mr. San Nicolas votes no. Mr. Tonko?
Tonko votes no.
Mr. Tonko votes no. Ms. Trahan?
Trahan votes no.
Ms. Trahan votes no. Ms. Velasquez?
I don't think this necessarily makes it fair.
Mrs. Boebert? Mr. Gomert?
Yes.
Mr. Gomert votes yes.
Boebert votes aye.
Ms. Boebert votes aye. Ms. Gonzalez-Colon?
Gonzalez-Colon votes aye.
Ms. Gonzalez-Colon votes aye. Mr. Graves? Ms. Harrell? Mr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Heiss votes yes. Mr. McClintock?
Aye.
Mr. McClintock votes aye. Ms. Radewagen? Mr. Rosendale?
Rosendale, aye.
Mr. Rosendale votes aye. Mr. Webster?
Webster votes yay.
Mr. Webster votes yay.
Garcia votes no.
Mr. Garcia votes no.
How is Lowenthal recorded?
Mr. Lowenthal is not recorded.
Lowenthal votes no.
Mr. Lowenthal votes no.
Record their vote that are not recorded, or change it.
Graves, yes. Graves, yes.
Mr. Graves votes yes.
If not, the vote is closed, and the clerk will tally and report.
Mr. Chair, on this vote, the yeas are 18 and the nays are 25.
Amendment fails, and we move to amendment designated Westerman number 1. We can vote electronically. Madam Clerk, how is the chair and ranking member recorded?
On this vote, the chair is recorded as a no, and the ranking member is recorded as a yes.
Thank you. The clerk will please read the names of any members not recorded.
Ms. Brownlee?
Brownlee, no.
Ms. Brownlee votes no. Mr. Case?
It's not working again.
Mr. Case votes no. Mr. Cohen? Mr. Costa?
Didn't work. Cohen, no.
Mr. Cohen votes no. Mr. Costa? Thank you. Mrs. Dingle?
Ingalls, no.
Mrs. Dingle votes no. Mr. Garcia?
Garcia votes no.
Mr. Garcia votes no. Mr. Lowenthal?
Lowenthal votes no.
Mr. Lowenthal votes no. Ms. McCullum? Mr. McEachin?
McEachin votes no.
Mr. McEachin votes no. Mr. Neguse?
No.
Mr. Neguse votes no. Mr. Sablon?
Sablon votes no.
Mr. Sablon votes no. Mr. San Nicolas?
Nicholas votes no.
Mr. San Nicolas votes no. Mr. Tonko? Mr. Hen?
Votes no. Trahan votes no.
Mr. Hen votes no. Ms. Velasquez? Mrs. Boebert?
Yes.
Boebert, yes.
Ms. Boebert votes
Lisa?
yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Carl?
Alan Lowenthal.
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Gomert?
Yes.
Mr. Gomert votes yes. Ms. Gonzalez-Colon?
Oh, I got it.
Gonzalez Colon votes aye.
Ms.
I got it.
Gonzalez-Colon votes aye. Mr. Graves? Ms. Harrell?
Graves is yes.
Mr. Graves votes yes. Ms. Harrell? Mr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Heiss votes yes. Mr. McClintock?
Aye.
Mr. McClintock votes aye. Mrs. Radewagen? Mr. Rosendale?
Rosendale, aye.
Mr. Rosendale votes aye. Mr. Webster?
Webster votes yay.
Any members not recorded that wish to be recorded?
Mr. Chair,
Madam Recording Secretary, Mr. Chair, this is McCollum. I don't believe I'm recorded yet.
Ms. McCollum?
Ms. McCollum is not recorded.
McCollum votes no.
Mr. Chair, it's Chanco. How am I recorded, please?
Mr. Tonko is not recorded.
Chanco votes no.
Mr. Tonko votes no.
If there's no one else, the vote is now closed. The clerk will tally and report.
Mr. Chair, on this vote, the yeas are 18 and the nays are 25.
The amendment fails, and we move to amendment designated Boebert number 1. Vote electronically. Madam Clerk, how is the chair and ranking member recorded?
On this vote, the chair is recorded as a no, and the ranking member is recorded as a yes.
The clerk will now read the names of any members not recorded.
Ms. Brownlee?
Votes no.
Ms. Brownlee votes no. Mr. Cohen?
No.
Mr. Cohen votes no. Mrs. Dingle?
Dingle votes, oops, sorry.
Mrs. Dingle votes
Dingle
no.
votes no.
Mrs. Dingle votes no. Mr. Gallego?
I thought she said Boebert.
Mr. Gallego?
Do what?
Mr. Garcia?
I was hoping to get votes now for some debate.
Mr. Garcia votes no. Mr. Huffman.
Gallego votes no.
Mr. Gallego votes no. Mr. Huffman. Mr. Huffman votes no. Mr. Lowenthal.
Oh, sorry. Last meeting we had. Yeah.
Mr. Lowenthal. Ms. McCollum. Mr. McEachin.
Mr. McEachin votes no.
Mr. McEachin votes no.
For all my graduating.
Mr. Neguse. Mr. Neguse?
Goose votes no.
Thank you. Mr. Neguse votes no. Mr. Sablon?
Sablon votes no.
Mr. Sablon votes no. Mr. San Nicolas?
I'm just waiting.
San Nicolas votes no.
Mr. San Nicolas votes no. Mr. Tonko?
Michael votes no.
Mr. Tonko, Mr. Tonko votes no. Thank you. Mr. Hen?
Trahan votes no.
Mr. Hen votes no.
Just had a day.
Ms. Velasquez?
Love you. Fuck.
Mrs. Boebert? Mr. Gomert?
All right,
Ms. Gonzalez
sorry,
Colon?
yes.
Oh, Mr. Gomert votes yes. Ms. Gonzalez Colon?
Gonzalez Colon votes aye.
Ms. Gonzalez Colon votes aye. Mr. Graves? Ms. Harrell? Mr. Heiss?
Yes.
I did it. That was the first.
Mr. Heiss
Graves,
votes
yes.
yes. Mr. Graves votes yes. Thank you. Mr.
Lowenthal, Boebert, number one, votes no.
Oh,
Mr. Lowenthal
Bobert
votes no.
votes aye.
Mrs. Boebert votes aye.
Thank you.
Mr.
All right, are
McClintock?
you back?
Will you give me the numbers you've got? I don't want to get that. too.
Mr.
Mr. McClintock?
Where's Elizabeth these days? Is
Aye.
she doing okay?
Mr. McClintock votes aye.
I think she's doing okay.
Mr. Obernolte?
She's talked too much since the COVID.
You know,
love to talk to you at some point, but I think we're in a better.
if people would monitor their online
Madam Chair?
so that we're
Madam
not
Chair, Madam
we're not
Secretary.
hearing your discussion here, that would be really helpful in the process. Not that we're not interested, but we're a little more interested in what we're doing right now. Continue, Madam Clerk, sir.
Mr. Obernolte?
So this is
Gallego votes.
natural resources, this is judiciary. And we're voting on natural resources right now, we're going to be voting.
Mr. Obernolte? Mrs.
So-
Radwagen?
We're still on the Boebert.
Oh, this is
So
still
you are,
voting. Yeah, okay, so I'm already.
Mr. Rose?
votes no.
So,
Mr. Gallego votes no.
I'm connected.
Already got that.
So, Mac.
Mr. Chair? Mrs. McCollum?
Ms. McCollum is recorded as a no.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosendale?
Rosendale, aye.
Mr. Rosendale votes aye. Mr. Webster?
Webster votes yay.
Mr. Webster votes yay.
Are there any members who wish to vote? They're not.
How is Lowenthal recorded?
Mr. Lowenthal,
Mr. Lowenthal is recorded as a no.
Mr.
Thank you.
How is Gonzalez Colon recorded?
Ms. Gonzalez Colon is recorded as a yes.
Thank you.
I go to school in Shelby.
Anyone else? If not, the vote is closed. Now clerk will tally and report.
Mr. Chair, on this vote, the yeas are 17 and the nays are 25.
The amendment fails. And now the question is on the ANS is amended to H.R. 5444. Members joining remotely can unmute. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the ANS is agreed to as amended. The question is now on adopting H.R. 5444 as amended and ordering it favorably reported to the House. Members joining, are we going to call recorded vote? No? Members joining remotely will unmute. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please indicate by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the bill is adopted as amended and ordered favorably reported. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Returning to H.R. 6707. The question is on the unfinished business, the amendments to the ANS. The amendment designated Obernaut number 2. A recorded vote has been requested. Members are going to vote electronically. Madam Clerk, how are chair and ranking member recorded?
On this vote, the chair is recorded as a no, and the ranking member is recorded as a yes.
Thank you. The clerk will not, please read the names of any members not recorded.
Ms. Brownlee?
Ms. Brownlee's no.
Ms. Brownlee votes no. Mr. Cohen?
No.
Mr. Cohen votes no. Mrs. Dingle?
Dingle votes no.
Mrs. Dingle votes no. Mr. Gallego? Mr. Garcia?
Garcia, no.
Mr. Garcia votes no.
Gallego votes no.
Mr. Gallego votes no. Mr. Lowenthal? Ms. McCollum?
No. Lowenthal votes no.
Thank you. Mr. Lowenthal votes no. Ms. McCollum? Mr. McEachin?
McCollum votes no.
Thank you. Ms. McCollum votes no. Mr. McEachin? Mr. Neguse?
No.
Mr. Neguse votes no. Mr. Sablon? Mr. San Nicolas?
Nicholas votes no.
Mr. San Nicolas votes no.
McEachin votes no.
Mr. McEachin votes no. Mr. Tonko?
Tonko votes no.
Mr. Tonko votes no. Mr. Han?
Yeah.
Mr. Han votes no. Ms. Velasquez? Mrs. Boebert? Mr. Gomert?
Gomer votes yes.
Mr. Gomert votes yes.
Boebert votes yes.
I really appreciate it.
Ms. Boebert votes yes.
It is so nice to meet you. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you many times.
Mr. Graves?
Another out.
How's Mr. Whitman recorded?
Mr. Whitman is not recorded.
Whitman votes aye.
Mr. Whitman votes aye. Ms.
How
Harrell?
is, oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Heiss?
Aye, yes.
Mr. Heiss votes yes. Mr. McClintock?
Aye.
Mr. McClintock votes aye. Mrs. Radewagen? Mr. Rosendale?
Rosendale, aye.
Mr. Rosendale votes aye. Mr. Webster?
Webster votes yay.
Mr. Webster votes yay. Mr. Whitman? Apologies. Mr. Whitman is recorded as a yes.
How is Trahan voted?
Mr. Han is recorded as a no.
Thank you. How is Ms. Gonzalez Colon recorded?
Ms. Gonzalez Colon is not recorded.
Gonzalez Colon is a yes.
Ms. Gonzalez Colon votes yes.
How is Mr. Lowenthal recorded?
Mr. Lowenthal is recorded as a no.
Thank you.
I didn't want to.
Graves is a yes.
Mr. Graves?
Graves is yes.
Mr. Graves votes yes.
The vote is now closed.
Johnson. Boy.
The vote is now closed. The clerk will tally and report.
Mr. Chair, on this vote, the yeas are 18 and the nays are 24.
The amendment fails. The question is on the ANS to H.R. H.R.6707. Members joining remotely will unmute. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the ANS is agreed to. The question is now on adopting H.R. 6707 as amended and ordered favorably reported to the House. Members joining remotely will unmute. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please indicate by saying no.
No.
No. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it, and the bill is adopted and as
Chairman, I
amended.
request the yeas.
A recorded vote being requested. Members will vote electronically.
We're on here.
And Madam Clerk, how are the chair and ranking member recorded?
On this vote, the chair is recorded as a yes, and the ranking member is recorded as a no.
No. The clerk will read the names of members not recorded.
Ms. Brownlee?
Brownlee, aye.
Ms. Brownlee votes aye. Mr. Cohen?
Aye.
Mr. Cohen votes aye. Mrs. Dingle?
Dingle votes aye.
Mrs. Dingle votes aye. Mr. Gallego? Mr. Garcia?
Garcia votes aye.
Mr. Garcia votes aye. Mr. Lowenthal?
Lowenthal votes aye.
Mr. Lowenthal votes aye. Ms. McCollum? Mr. McEachin?
Keachin votes yes.
Mr. McEachin votes yes. Mr. Neguse?
Yes.
Mr. Neguse votes yes. Mr. Sablon? Mr. San Nicolas?
St. Nicholas votes yes.
Mr. San Nicolas votes yes. Mr. Tonko?
Conco votes yes.
Mr. Tonko votes yes. Ms. Trahan?
Trahan votes yes.
Ms. Trahan votes yes. Ms. Velasquez? Mrs. Boebert? Mr. Gomert? Ms. Gonzalez-Colon? Mr. Graves? Ms. Harrell?
No.
Mr. Whitman votes no.
Mr. Whitman votes no. Ms. Harrell? Mr. Heiss?
Ice, no.
Mr. Heiss votes
Boebert
no.
votes no.
Ms. Boebert votes no. Mr. McClintock?
No.
Mr. McClintock votes no. Mrs. Radewagen? Mr. Rosendale?
Rosendale, no.
Mr. Rosendale votes no. Mr. Webster?
Webster votes nay.
Mr. Webster votes no. Pardon me. Mr. Whitman is recorded as a no.
How much Gonzalez Colon is recorded?
Ms. Gonzalez-Colon is not recorded.
Any other member?
I'm a no.
Ms.
Mr.
Gonzalez-Colon
Chair,
votes
this
no.
is, Mr. Chair, this is McCollum and my video won't work. Am I still able to vote?
Oh, no.
Gomert votes no.
Mr. Gomert votes no.
Ms.
There
McCollum,
you
I
go.
think you need to be visible on,
Yes.
for us to be able to.
Yes, I moved to another part of the Capitol, so I now have video. Mr.
Yes.
Chair, I wish to be recorded as a yes.
Ms. McCollum is recorded as a yes.
Graves, no.
Mr. Graves votes no.
Any other members? The vote is now closed. Clerk will tally and report, please. I know that part.
Mr. Chair, on this vote, the yeas are 24 and the nays are 16.
The ayes have it. The bill is adopted as amended and ordered favorably reported to the House, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.